Okay, I'm taking video so that we can repeat this if the cords are ever cut off the charging stations again. As you can see, there's the cut off piece, and then that's where it goes. And it has these retainers that the cord has to be fed through first. So I'd grab those leads and push it through the other way, but I'm doing it this way so I don't have to gather them up. But anyhow, that goes like that with your trailing cord out that way, and it's got this relief right here. And you line that up and then put the screws in. So you can see the end of that relief of the cable. Okay. But what's kind of proprietary is this plug right here. This thing is a pin that attaches to the circuit board. Remove that portion. There's a connector on the circuit board that it goes into. I'm looking to see where that is. It looks like it's this one. Yeah. See, that's pretty proprietary there. So I figure, there's one for each side because this is a double-headed charger. So as you can see, that locks into those, and there's another one right next to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to connect it to the new cable, to the orange wire, which is the small gauge wire, and I'll use a crimp and solder connection here for that. So that's the first step. That's what I'm going to do for both of these. Another important thing to do, or not do, like I did, is to forget to put these boots on. These things have to go on when you're feeding the wire through. And they're just another kind of strain relief. But you can't put them on after the fact. That means, yeah, I got to take it apart again, feed the wire through there, and reattach. So make sure you get that in the right step or order, or you'll be redoing it like me. Okay, let's cover this one more time. So it doesn't go over that metal flange that holds the cable in. It goes over the combined clamshell, these two plastic pieces. This snaps onto that. Oh, but before you put the connector on, one thing is the leads that on this new cable are shorter that have been stripped compared to the original. So you're going to want to strip that back appropriately first, because this orange control wire, which needs that special pin, is actually going to be shorter than the others. You want it to be shorter than the others, or else you can have it bind up in there. So you want to strip this back so you have the same length overall of the big cables, and then cut the orange one appropriately back so it matches the length of the blue one on the original in relation to the length of the others. So when you splice that on, you want it the same length. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, I've now cut them to length to match the old, and I've cut a piece of heat shrink tubing at the strain relief to give it more strength. And applying the heat gun. Okay, that just strengthens up the lead edge, and do that on both of them. Alright, so I've made the cut on that wire and on the blue wire. I'm going to join it with this solder on shrink tubing connector. This doesn't actually require crimping, so you just feed them in there and let the wires intermesh right where that bead of solder is in the middle, and then heat it up with the heat gun. Heat this until you see the solder melt into the wire. You see it melting into the wires. So there's a completed result, and you can see the two control wires are virtually the same length, and that proprietary plug is now attached to the new cord. And you can see the solder has joined the wiring together. Next step is to attach the crimp ferrules onto the ends of the stranded wire, so that when you attach it to the circuit board, it clamps down on this metal part here. So this one's the appropriate, the yellow seems to be the right size for this number 10 gauge wire. So can't show you on the video, but I'll put it on and crimp it and I'll show you. There's all three completed. That one got a little bit long, but that's alright. Sticks out a little bit. One thing to note, don't twist the wires together before putting it through. It probably won't fit. Just carefully get each strand in the end of the ferrule, and then kind of rotate the ferrule to nudge each fiber, each little wire into the metal part of the ferrule before you crimp it. Okay, here's the other cable. One thing I wanted to note is when you cut the insulation back to make these wires match the length exposed to the original, be very careful not to cut that too deep. And what I do is first cut around in a circular pattern around this very lightly, and then I turn my knife lengthwise, and you can see the cut line where I've cut across to here, and I still don't pierce all the way through. And then you can grab the end of it and start pulling it, and you kind of just rip it apart, because you don't want to nick these wires at all. And if you cut into those wires at all, then you've got to cut it off and start over. So just be very careful about how deep you cut to strip this rubber sheath off. Control blue cable plugs into that proprietary connector. There's the ground, and then the two main conductors go through that loop and then go onto the circuit board. One's labeled B for black, the other one was white because the original one had white, but this one's red. Doesn't make any difference because it's 220, so either one technically, but I just put the colors to colors. So here's the other one. I'm feeding it now through that, and it's important for that to go through there because it's an inductance thing that knows when current is flowing through here. So you got to have it going through there or the machine charger won't work right. So then see, this one's B over here. So there's the black one goes there. The red one goes to the white.
Yeah, Rich from Dispatch is retiring.
And there it is, completed, installed. Okay, now it's time to put on the circuit board, upper circuit board. So it simply connects, lines up these holes here with those standoffs. And this cord has to plug in to this, and this end just sits in this channel. These connect to the last part of the clamshell of this. So I'll put those screws in and secure that cable. Fair warning, don't use the drill driver putting these screws back in, or you'll shear it off like I did. Luckily I was able to get that back out of the plastic. So I'm replacing it with a Phillips head. These original screws are a Torx drive. Doesn't matter though. These look like they're stainless steel too, but in this spot I don't think it really matters. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, now this tether here that comes from this second board, it just feeds underneath this bar, and just rotate this and it goes into that slot right there. Just like that. Now these two spade connectors, the white one goes on the top or the left side of this unit, and the red one goes on the bottom. I don't think it really matters, but again, I'm putting it back the way it was. Also make sure to lightly clean the inside of the plexiglass on this and the digital screen, just lightly. This one I just did dry to get the dust off, and on this one I just used a little bit of water on a rag, wiped it with the wet side, and then wipe it with the dry, because it likely won't be opened up again unless somebody cuts the wires again. Okay, then this is the device, the cellular device that sends the billing information, etc. through the internet, and I believe this is the power and mini USB, and it just plugs in right here. Just like so. And then this is the power cable coming from the base unit, and that plugs in after you pop this whole head back in. And then there is one ground screw this attaches to ground everything together, and I'll look at that to see which one this goes on. I don't remember, but I'm guessing that it just sticks out the bottom and attaches to the pedestal when you mount it. Either way, it's got to be grounded, so there must be a spot on the pedestal, and I just didn't remember. So just don't forget that ground wire. Okay, and finally, these metal spring pieces go on either side, and this is what helps lock it in when you slide that into the pedestal. So make sure you get those installed too. Now the final piece before we can put this whole thing back in the pedestal is this top cap, which we had a heck of a time removing before, but you're not supposed to, you don't remove this until after you have the head off. So this just slides on these two lock pins, lock in, and there you have it. And that, my friends, is a complete restore of a Chargepoint charging head with new wires, and it's saving probably $4,000. Thanks for watching. Okay, part 2 of repairing these Chargepoint stations if they've had their cords cut off. Chargepoint, well, of course, wants you to replace the whole head for over $4,000. And if they've cut the cable management system, which is this here, those are another like $200 and something. Well, I've got the answer for you. So we get these rubber stoppers for air hoses, for reels, and it's I drill it to the approximate size for this cable, for the charging cable, and then I'm gonna drill another hole through the rubber and insert a piece of aluminum tubing that will reinforce the rubber, and that's where the string will go through and attach. And this is best done after the head is reinstalled, because it's going to take some figuring on running these the strings through all this, the counterweights and the head there. See, these were cut off when they cut off the cables. They cut the strings off, so they're going to be too short to use existing, and it's missing the proprietary plastic twist cap thing that of course Chargepoint doesn't sell. So rather than pay Chargepoint for a whole new system, this is going to be a way to fix this. So that part will come in the next phase here. So we'll get the head installed first and then move on. All right, something you're going to want to do though before getting it out to the field is you're going to want to drill this rubber thing to a larger size before you get it out there. I bought this reamer to do that, but it doesn't have a reduced shank, so it doesn't even fit in the drill press. But what I figured out you can do, put a socket adapter on your drill and use a 16 millimeter socket in the multi-point drive type socket, and that square end fits perfect in there. So use that, just kind of hold it together, and then just start it on one side. Before you go all the way through to the other side, turn it over and then drill in from the other side, so you get a nice clean cut on both sides, and do that on both of them. And then finally, with a 5 millimeter drill bit, then you'll want to drill sideways through this rubber to attach the cord management string to this, and that's what holds the whole thing up onto the pedestal. So that's why it manages the length of cord going to from the charge head to the wand, or nozzle as they call it. So I'd recommend doing those first so you have a vise to work with, and then you should be good. Alright, on attaching these rubber stoppers, as I've said before, you got to drill the hole bigger, and when you do that with that reamer, it actually makes it larger than the diameter of the wire. So, but what you want to do is, that's on purpose, so you want to get a piece of the original rubber sheathing from the wire and cut a short section of it like that, and then take that, which is, that's it cut in half, cut it again into a quarter, so you have two pieces of quarter of fill basically, and then you're going to jam it onto either side of that cable, and that will apply enough pressure to make the stopper grab the cable without damaging it. This is hard rubber here. It doesn't give much, but the other rubber does. So it'll squish and lock that into there. And you can see there's, well, you can't see daylight, but it is not pressed against the wire on two sides. So you want to just slip a piece in there as a shim on each side and then tighten it down, and that should hold it in place. Alright, another thing to note, these nuts and screws that hold this on, I discovered one had SAE threads, the other one has metric threads, and I thought I'd lost the nut to one of them, so temporarily I stole the nut from this one to test on this one. That's when I found out the nut was stuck inside this thing, and I hadn't lost it. I thought it fell out. Anyhow, then I went to screw it together, and this stupid screw wouldn't go in. It just locked up. And I'm like, well, that's strange. I just took it out of the other one, and I realized it was being cross-threaded into the wrong, it's from metric into a standard. So I put the nut with the screw back together, and so now this one has standard, this one has metric screw. So if that happens to you, just check and make sure you got the same ones that came with it, because that's a very frustrating thing to happen. Alright, the final thing to do on these rubber stops is to drill a hole through the width of it like this, so the string or the suspension system will hold it, and so that it doesn't pull through the rubber, even though it would probably take a lot to do that. I insert an aluminum rod tube inside there. So to make that right, I've got the right drill bit here, and to center it, I'm using this cap, plastic cap from a spray can, just to hold it flat. And then I just kind of eyeballed where I wanted to put it and drilled all the way through, and the sizing is just right on that aluminum that it press fits into the hole and stays put. So hopefully that works with the string and doesn't cut through the string. We'll see, I guess. But that's what I thought. The other thought would be to go ahead and put that tube through, and then drill a hole, 2 holes on either side of that, feed the string down and around, and it would just come out through the side here. That would work too. It's just a lot more work, and I'm just going to try it this way first.
Chargepoint.
And here it is. There we have it. Installed. We had to do a little grinding on the face here to get the wand to go in far enough to lock, because those Chargepoint guys had it so that the lock tab was a little bit longer on their wand. But after doing some fancy tricky grinding on there with the vibratory sander, that made it work. Oh yeah, and here's our little fancy homemade cord management system. And there you have it.
You're recording saying loose ground.
The loose ground that we attached to the board that was on the pedestal was the wrong place. It screws into the back side of the charge head, which is metal. It looks like it's plastic, but it's actually metal. So it jumpers the ground from the clamp that locks it into the post, and it grounds it to the back chassis of the charger head. And when we took the screw out, you could see the metal threads in it. It's a machine screw. Anyway, that was that mystery also. Okay, a final follow-up on the Chargepoint saga. When we couldn't pull the wands out of the Chargepoint head, it's because the relay wasn't clicking. And the reason it wasn't clicking is because one of the spade connectors behind didn't get fully engaged on the pin back there, so it was just hanging loose when we pulled the head back out. So that's what we determined it was. It just wasn't getting the power. It was activating it and trying to. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to put an authorized card on here. And right now, there it goes. And then it relocked. So there we go, and then we cancel. And there you have it. Oop, that one came out. Huh. All right, there we go. All right, that's the end of this video.